Hello and welcome back. It is me, and today we are discussing capitalism versus communism. Finally. And my opinion is just gonna be the opinion of some guy on the internet. I don't know, I feel like my opinion is fairly standard, but at the same time, it's something that should be said because I am growing increasingly concerned by the opinions of people my age or younger on the internet, so let's talk about it. And today we're doing challenge number 9, Demo Man. Pretty good. Okay, so pretty straightforward here, pretty straightforward challenge. Now, let's get right into the topic because there is a lot to talk about, a lot to topic about, if you will. So, I spent the past 2 episodes describing and defining capitalism and communism, and so just some quick reminders there. Oh good, they weren't spiders. Well, okay. First of all, capitalism. No actual agreed upon definition. Again, that surprised me, but I don't know, maybe you knew that already. Communism, socialism, rather, which were initially at least the same word, does have a pretty solid definition, and I guess, I don't know, health isn't really worth it, but it's more recent than capitalism. Capitalism really just seems like a natural progression for a lot of markets, a lot of societies. I'm not saying that it is the end goal of markets and societies, but that it just is a thing that kind of happens, I'm sure there will be people that disagree with me on this because this is a topic that a lot of people care very much about. But in my opinion, at least from everything I've read over the past few days, which has mostly been like a dozen different Wikipedia articles. Ooh, very nice. Oh! Yes, please! That is amazing for me. Well, maybe it's not that amazing, but it's pretty good. Anyway, capitalism, again, just seems like something that kind of naturally happens as long as you have private property and the governments don't interfere too much with businesses. Nice. Where's secret room? I don't know why it would be there, but I checked anyway. Here. Here. Here? Here. Here? No, couldn't be there. I guess it's over there? I'm at a loss. Ah. Here for some reason. Bye-bye. Okay, well that was a very interesting secret room. I'm glad I went to check it out. Now, let me say this before I get into the real meat of what I'm talking about today. I think that socialism has some really lovely ideas in it. And I say that because I don't have very good things to say for the rest of the video about communism. Again, socialism and communism kind of sort of mean the same thing, kind of. As a reminder, in Marxist-Leninist ideologies, socialism is the ultimate end state of all societies. In Karl Marx's belief, anyways. Oh, this guy is healthy. He is no longer very healthy. that, according to Marx, I'm trying to say less, by the way. You probably can't tell because I've only recently decided that. But according to Marx, he believes that as societies grow and develop, they evolve into capitalism, and then eventually from there evolve into socialism, with the ideal end goal being a society without money, without government at all, and without any form of oppression, but that a necessary intermediary state is one in which a socialist state must exist to oppress those who would themselves oppress. And that's what we see with the Soviet Union. Oh, there you are. Cool. I said there, but I don't count that one because that's a more natural than a I don't know what to say, you know? Yay! Yay! I almost forgot. Whoa! Whoa! Oh, okay. Wow. And a lucky penny. Great. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Okay, anyway. In my opinion, the real fault of socialism is not that socialist ideas are bad, it's not that, I said, I don't mean to point it out every time. I'm just getting mad at myself here, not at you. The problem here is that although the ideas are lovely and it's really nice to imagine that sort of future, it ends up creating these avenues for which political corruption becomes much, much easier. And even though it has been argued that that's not really a flaw of socialism, it's a flaw of socialists. Yes, I noticed. I think that because of how common it is, and because of how devastating it is, we need to consider it an appropriate consequence of communism, of socialism, at least in its purest form. As a reminder, I didn't say this last time, really, although I certainly meant to. There I go again. All economies in the world are ultimately mixed economies. There is no economy that is purely capitalist. There is no economy that is purely socialist, at least not anymore. So all of the world's economies at the moment are mixed economies. That's the nature of things. Ooh. Money. More money. And I don't fully remember the point I was making about that. You'll have to excuse me. And now I am in a bit of a pickle. I don't know how to get rid of these guys safely. Ow. That works. Oh, I should have just laid actual bombs. That would have worked so much better. I'll go check. I'm glad I did, I think. Huh. So, it does nothing? Unless I get hit while holding down the fire button, I guess? Anyway. Yeah, okay, that one was on me, but there's a nice tinted rock right there. Look at all these goodies. No soul hearts, though. Great. Wonderful. Love to see it. Ooh. I think I remember where I was going before, so as a reminder, even though you could argue that a lot of the historical deaths and famines and corruptions due to communism are because there just happen to be less than great people involved in those systems, I think it is indeed appropriate, considering how often it has happened, to consider it a feature rather than a bug, even if it's unintentional. Actually, that would make it still a bug, but one that should be noted. Let me put it that way. That's a better way to put it. So, I'll get back to some more fair analysis of capitalism versus communism at the end, but for the majority of this video, okay. Let me instead now take some time and focus on, unfortunately, a lot of bad things that happened under communism, specifically. Because these are important reminders that these things happened. And as I will share, again, near the end, it's difficult, if not impossible, to really say that the same things happen under capitalism. Kind of, sort of. At least not that capitalism is somehow directly at fault like communism. Much more is. Although there is still room for argument. So let's start out with the big man himself, Joseph Stalin. If you've ever heard the unfortunate but very true statement that one death is a tragedy, but 1 million is a statistic, first of all, again, very true. It's very sad that life works that way, but that's true. One death is a tragedy, 1 million does feel like just a statistic. It's not something we can really comprehend. That is a quote from Joseph Stalin. Isn't that nice? Isn't that pleasant? So, Joseph Stalin officially only executed 79,455 people. Officially. Now, I won't actually harp too much on official versus unofficial numbers because there are more numbers to consider than just executions, but that is probably the biggest, most important number as far as talking about credible differences between capitalism and communism, you know? Okay. Cool. I can get into the boss arena. That is gross. Okay. Cool. I guess I'll use you first, right? Yeah. I have the keys, after all. Justice. That's fine. You can't scare me anymore. Let's see. Some historians believe that Joseph Stalin may have executed between, or up to, rather, 20 million people in total, but again, there is some credible debate here for ideological biases in a lot of these anti-communist numbers, and I didn't personally review the work of these historians either, so I can't honestly tell you whether their work is, well, how credible some of those upper estimates are. But again, that's just executions so far. Approximately 1.5 to 1.7 million deaths occurred in the Soviet Gulag. So that's wonderful. That's it's not at all. I need to stop saying that sort of thing. Oh. Okay. This is not bad. Ow. Yeah, okay, I've walked into that one. That one I didn't walk into, but well, you saw what happened. You'll be my witness in court. Ah, get back here. By get back here, I mean die already. There we go. I need a heart, so let me go find one. Well, okay, that ended up being pretty easy. Up to 400,000 deaths of people occurred who occurred in people? By people? I don't know what the correct term is anymore. It's escaping my brain. But up to, again, 400,000 deaths occurred of people who were deported in the 1940s as well, again under Joseph Stalin. And now let's talk about the famine aspect, because this isn't dark enough of a topic. Yay. So the Soviet famine of 1932 to 1933 killed between 5.5 to 6.5 million people. That's a pretty big famine, but not the worst that we'll talk about today. No, unfortunately not. But it's still really bad, and a lot of that blame comes down to Trofim Lysenko. If you aren't familiar with him, Trofim Lysenko, in brief, I'll keep it brief here. Trofim Lysenko was the director of the Institute of Genetics of the Soviet Academy of Sciences, and basically a big plant guy in charge of a lot of the Soviet Union's crops, and he didn't believe in Mendelian genetics. So, yeah. That makes things a little awkward and difficult. You see, his whole thing was kind of like, well, if we force plants into a really, really harsh environment, then they'll eventually just adapt. And, yeah, that ideology didn't work. He's not using evolutionary biology here at all. He's just forcing plants that aren't adapted to cold weather to be exposed to extreme cold weather, and then he's wondering when things will start working for him. And yeah, a lot of people died because his ideologies were the ones that prevailed in the Soviet Union, because he was a what's the most appropriate description here? A trusted, respected member of the socialist state, rather than someone who had scientific credibility behind him. Propolis 1, that is fine. Let me just go clear this guy up. Now that is the last I want to say about the Soviet Union itself, but there's unfortunately a lot more examples. Oh, come on. There we are. Oh, I appreciate shot speed. It doesn't really do anything, though. Yeah, I'll fight you as well. Why not? Yes, taste my dad's ring. And that was pretty easy, you know? And I don't care about Wheel of Fortune. I don't care about Temperance either, unless it was the little demon guide, but it wasn't, you know? And I almost passed up that, so let's go get that. Why? Oh, I'm dumb. That's why. Yay. Oh, never mind. Big whoop. So next up, I want to mention Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong is a story of a lot of political corruption, honestly. He was not afraid of torturing people that opposed him, or that he felt made him look bad. So in Mao Zedong's 5-year plans as well... Uh-oh. Yeah, fine. There's one of his 5-year plans in particular that is of a lot of importance to the topic today, at least. And that is... Uh-oh. His Great Leap Forward plan. So, that particular 5-year plan of his was involved a lot of agricultural and industrial... What's the proper term here, because I forgot to write it down. Not renovations. It's like another R word. You know? You feel? Reforms! Reforms, yes. Reforms, that's the word. A lot of those sorts of reforms. But the reforms themselves, plus a lot of bad weather in 1959, resulted in between 15 to 40 million deaths from starvation. Yikes. That's really bad. Like, even 1 million deaths is difficult to comprehend. I get that. Joseph Stalin is kind of right there. It is a statistic rather than a tragedy. But that is just an ungodly number of deaths. An unholy number. And yeah, I'll trade. I don't care about... Oh. Okay. And we continue. Oh, I missed. Let's see. Mao Zedong responded by, first of all, abstaining from meat to honor the people currently suffering, so that's a nice gesture at least, right? Oh, but he also blamed counter-revolutionaries on the famine, rather than his own policies or poor weather or anything like that. And he also didn't really seek to rectify the famine either, he just focused on ignoring it a lot. That's great. And these counter-revolutionaries, he said, were people who were just hiding and dividing grain. Yeah, those people definitely exist. You're really helping your own countrymen and women here. But that's enough of Mao Zedong. I also feel it's important to mention, of course, Xi Jinping. Remember the Uyghurs? The Uyghur Muslims? I do. I happen to like Uyghur Muslims. And I also personally, I can't say I've met that many of them, but I do really like their food. They have some delicious dishes, I must say. But, yeah, remember when the news really focused on Uyghur Muslims in China and how over 1 million were incarcerated and hundreds of thousands of children were separated from their parents? I do, because that issue was never resolved. It's still ongoing. because the UN has no real power. And just like said, hey China, maybe don't do that. And then China said, what, are you gonna tell us we're committing genocide? And then the UN said, oh no, sorry, we're not looking to start a fight or anything. And then backed off. Mostly. Next up is Pol Pot in Cambodia. Pol Pot is responsible for the deaths of about 2 million people through a variety of methods, through starvation, exhaustion, execution, and lack of medical care. In total, Pol Pot killed about 25% of Cambodia's population. That's yeah. And I also want to mention the Ethiopian Red Terror. So I'm not too familiar with this myself, so I apologize if I am not too familiar with the correct pronunciation of this. I shouldn't have grabbed that, whatever. But when the Derg, or Derg, the Provisional Military Administrative Council, gained control of Ethiopia, they killed between 10,000 and 750,000 of their political opponents, many of which who were also communist, but not their brand of communist, as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong on anything, really. To quote the Derg chairman, we are doing what Lenin did. You cannot build socialism without red terror. And I kind of didn't mention it, but this mass execution was called the Red Terror. So, you know, I don't think that's what Lenin did. I'm not saying that I love Lenin. I'm not saying he's even that great of a guy. But I don't think he murdered tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people. I don't think he did, really. Some honorable mentions, of course, North Korea, Romania, and Yugoslavia. So, what's my point in mentioning all of this? My point is not that all of what socialism is bad. My point in mentioning this is to suggest that maybe the end goal of socialism is untenable. I need to go that way, huh? Ooh. Alright. In total, an estimated 10 to 20 million on the low end, or as many as 148 million people died as quote-unquote a result of communism, but this includes a variety of factors such as executions, famines, forced labor deaths, deportation, starvation, and imprisonment. Get out of here. Wait, I can use you. Oh, it didn't even kill. There we go. And again, a lot of those numbers are prone to ideological biases. I will fully admit that. On the opposite end, from the Black Book of Capitalism, which came out in 1998, that book is where people tend to get the number that capitalism has in turn killed 100 million people. The only problem is that Black Book of Capitalism includes both world wars, colonial wars, anti-communist campaigns, repressions and mass killings, ethnic conflicts, and victims of famine or malnutrition. Some of those are appropriate, I guess, for considering, deaths due to capitalism, but definitely not both world wars. In my opinion, anyway. I don't see how capitalism caused those... I mean, capitalism is a factor in those wars, in the sense that if it never existed, then I guess those wars wouldn't have existed, but I think other wars would have. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's what people think it is. There we go. That was an awkward way of putting it, but, like, both world wars together account for between 64 million deaths to 99 million deaths. So that's anywhere from, like, almost 2/3 of that 100 million figure to 99% of it. So, again, capitalism is really hard to define, but it's not really something that we can so easily point to as a cause of deaths. Just by its nature, it's just an economic system, man. Dude. Now, deaths intentionally done against communist peoples by people that are in support of capitalism, that I could see as counting towards that statistic appropriately, but, you know, like, really? Both world wars? Anyway, let me give my final notes here as this challenge wraps up. I think between capitalism and communism, capitalism is the clear winner. Not just historically in that communism fell and capitalism didn't, but that I don't see the socialist state ultimately working out in the end, as lovely as a Star Trek future would be, where people don't have money and everyone just works because they like to. Which is also arguably the description of heaven, given in Revelation. Arguably. Ow. Specifically, the problem here, to me at least, is that communism offers a much more direct access to political corruption. Capitalism offers less direct access to political corruption. There is no way to ultimately prevent corruption. There are ways to mitigate it, to slow it down, to make it less likely to happen. And those are all great things, and we should invest in those things and research those things and figure out what works and what doesn't. And maybe it's a mix of capitalist policies and socialist policies. But there are flaws to capitalism. Greed, a society motivated by greed, isn't a great thing, you know? But historically, it's definitively better than a society that strives towards a socialist or communist ideal, because, you know, when you combine all of the power into the government, that is absolute power, and it corrupts absolutely. Even if most people in positions of that sort of power would do fine, it only takes a few to completely undermine the entire reason, the entire ideals of socialism. It only takes a few corrupt individuals in high places of power in a socialist state to start throwing away lives rather than cherishing them. So, as beautiful as some of the ideas in socialism and communism are, at best, we can use them in a mixed economy. I don't think it is feasible. I don't think it is tenable. I don't think it is a very good idea for the sake of minorities. In the context of almost any population, I don't think it's a good idea for the sake of any and all minorities to be subjected to a socialist state, because it is such a concentration of power that minorities really get the short end of the stick, and that's to put it lightly. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I don't hate people who are communist or socialist, and I don't hate people who are big proponents of capitalism either. But I think there are serious problems with communism that are less obvious. With capitalism, it's harder to be to have a corrupt government in a capitalist society because power is more decentralized. It doesn't prevent corruption again, but it makes it harder. And we very clearly see a lot of the effects of communism, if not through direct executions, then through a lot of famines and starvation. There are absolutely flaws with capitalism too, but it's just, there's a lot of people these days on the internet that really seem attached to ideas of socialism and communism, and I'm concerned. And I will actually stop here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you for watching too. I hope you learned something today. And what I really hope, honestly, is that maybe I've challenged some of your ideas. Maybe I haven't at all. But I kind of hope that I have, because that's one of the main reasons I've decided to make this series, is because I want to get people talking about stuff, even if it's awkward. So thank you for being here, and I hope to see you again tomorrow, when we will be discussing something not related to economics, but maybe still related to politics. Take care.